My friends, you have come here seeking an answer to a question that can feel like a maddening, unsolvable riddle. Why does the narcissist blame others for everything? It is a question born of pain, confusion, and the desperate human need to find logic in the illogical. You believe you are witnessing a simple character flaw, a childish refusal to take responsibility, a moral failing that could be corrected with enough patience or proof. Let me be clear. With the cold, unwavering precision of a surgeon's scalpel, you are fundamentally mistaken. You are not witnessing a choice. You are witnessing a desperate, reflexive, and non-negotiable law of psychic survival. For the narcissist, the act of blaming is not a tactic in their arsenal. It is as essential and automatic as the beating of a heart. To ask them to accept blame is not to ask them to be humble. It is to ask them to commit an act of instantaneous and total self-annihilation. To truly comprehend this, you must venture into the terrifying landscape of their inner world, a place not of thoughts and feelings as you know them, but a meticulously constructed, hermetically sealed, and exquisitely fragile museum. At the very center of this silent, sterile museum stands a single flawless life-size statue made of the most delicate crystal. This is their false self, their grandiose persona, the perfect, infallible, and eternally blameless God they have built to worship and to be. The museum's sole, obsessive purpose is to protect this crystal statue from a single grain of external dust, a single vibration of criticism, a single crack of imperfection. Outside the reinforced walls of this museum rages a horrifying, eternal, and chaotic storm. This is the unendurable truth of their inner reality. A howling void of profound worthlessness, a swirling vortex of deep-seated shame, and a primal terror of being exposed as the empty fraud they intuitively know themselves to be. The act of accepting blame, of internalizing even the smallest iota of responsibility for a negative outcome, would be the equivalent of taking a sledgehammer to the museum's walls, allowing the full, annihilating force of that storm to rush in and shatter the crystal statue into a billion unrecognizable shards. In that moment, they would be left naked, alone, and defenseless in the heart of the hurricane of their own true self, facing the unbearable horror of their own emptiness. And so, their entire psychological apparatus, every neuron, every instinct, is programmed with one prime directive that supersedes all morality, all logic, all love. Protect the statue at all costs. Blame, therefore, is not a shield they choose to hold up. It is an emergency teleportation device that is hardwired into their very being. The instant a negative outcome, a mistake, a failure, a conflict, a disappointment, materializes in their reality, it is perceived as a direct, lethal missile aimed at the statue. And in that nanosecond, their psyche grabs that toxic, radioactive piece of negativity and teleports it outside the museum walls, launching it with violent, unerring force onto the nearest available target, you. This is not a simple verbal act of saying, "It's your fault." It is a profound, aggressive, and violent psychological process known as projection, and the narcissist is a grandmaster of this dark and twisted art. They do not just accuse you of their flaws. They perform a kind of psychic surgery on themselves without anesthetic, actively and brutally excising their own shame, their own incompetence, their own malice, their own infidelity, their own cruelty from their consciousness, and suturing it directly onto your soul. You become their living effigy, the vessel that must contain all the parts of themselves they cannot bear to own. When they fail at a project at work, and then come home to call you incompetent and lazy, it is because the searing feeling of their own incompetence is a psychological acid that threatens to dissolve their crystal statue from within. They must pour that acid onto you, watch it burn you, to feel clean and whole themselves. When they lie to you with a straight face, and then, hours later, fly into a rage accusing you of being a dishonest and secretive person, It is because their core identity as a good, honest person cannot coexist with the factual reality of their own deception. Therefore, you must become the liar, so they can remain the saint of their own narrative. You are not just a scapegoat, you are their psychic landfill, the designated, officially zoned dumping ground for all of their toxic, radioactive waste. They treat your mind, your heart, your spirit, and your reputation as a hazardous waste facility. And they visit it daily, hourly, to unload the burdens of their own corrupted soul. This is the very reason why their accusations feel so bizarre, so surreal, so utterly disconnected from reality that it makes you feel you are going insane. It is because their blame has absolutely nothing to do with you, your actions, or the objective truth of the situation. It is a direct, unedited, verbatim transcript of their own inner monologue of self-hatred, a confession of their own sins, which they then force you to read aloud in the first person as if it were your own autobiography. You feel a dizzying confusion because you are desperately trying to find the logic in their accusation. You are meticulously searching your own memory for the evidence of your alleged crime. But you will find nothing because you are looking in the wrong place. The origin of the crime is not in your history, it is in their soul. You are being put on a show trial for their sins, and the verdict is always, inevitably guilty, because your conviction is the only thing that grants them their acquittal in the court of their own mind. And now, viewers, you must face the most brutal and painful truth of all. The reason so many of you are chosen for this horrific role. The narcissist, like a predator, has a chillingly accurate instinct for locating the perfect host for their psychic parasites. They are drawn with magnetic precision to the empathetic, the responsible, the conscientious, the compassionate. Those who are quick to self-reflect, to doubt themselves, and to accept a portion of the blame in any conflict in the noble hope of finding harmony and resolution. Many of you were likely taught that taking responsibility is a virtue. You were taught that it's important to look at your own part in any disagreement. You came to the relationship with an open heart and a willingness to say those fateful words. Okay, maybe it was me. I'm sorry. And the narcissist smelled this beautiful quality on you, like a shark smells a single drop of blood in a vast ocean. Your capacity for self-blame was the open, welcoming wound through which they could inject all their venom. Every time you accepted their blame, every time you swallowed your confusion and apologized for something you didn't do just to keep the fragile peace, you did something far more damaging than just placating them. You validated their entire distorted reality. You confirmed to them that their system works, that the museum is safe, that the crystal statue is secure and still gleaming. You became, unwittingly, a co-conspirator in your own psychological demolition, a willing janitor in their psychic waste disposal system, dutifully cleaning up the messes they made so they wouldn't have to. They cannot maintain a reality in which they are at fault, so they must create a shared reality with someone who is willing to be at fault for them. The blame game is not a game for one player. It requires a partner who will agree to be the loser. Your pain, your tears, your confusion, your frantic attempts to defend yourself with logic and evidence were all just fuel for their system, the satisfying proof that their projections had landed, that the psychic teleportation was successful, that the poison had been effectively transferred. To argue with them, to defend your innocence, is to fall into their most clever trap. It is to accept the premise that the blame is a negotiable topic up for debate. It is not. It is a fundamental, unchangeable law of their being. And to try and make them see their own fault is as futile and as foolish as trying to convince the ocean to be dry. You will only drown in the tsunami of their rage. The only way to win is to refuse to play the game. The only way to survive is to resign from your position as their landfill, to declare your own soul a sovereign territory, an unbreachable sanctuary where their poison can no longer be dumped. And you must be prepared for the fallout of this decision, for when you calmly and quietly refuse to accept the blame, their rage will be apocalyptic, because you are not just disagreeing with them on a minor point. You are holding up a mirror to their true self. You are dismantling their entire defense mechanism, and you are threatening their very existence by forcing them to sit, for one terrifying moment, in the unbearable, stinking presence of their own toxic waste. This blame game is built on a horrifying void. It is a reflection of their inner world, a world in which they cannot face their own imperfection. Therefore, they construct a world in which they are flawless and you are flawed. Every accusation they make is a projection of their own failures and insecurities. When they call you lazy, they are confronting their own inertia. When they call you a liar, they are grappling with their own deceit. It is a constant psychological war they wage to maintain their inner peace. You have no place in this war except as a target. The path to freedom lies not in understanding or changing them, but in completely disengaging from this game. This means stopping taking their accusations personally and seeing them for what they are, the desperate cries of a wounded soul. When you step out of their cycle of blame, you deprive them of their power. You become someone they cannot control, and that is their greatest fear. So remember, you are not deserving of their blame. You are not meant to be a vessel for their unowned soul. Reclaim your power, set your boundaries, and choose the peace that comes from being free of their toxic game of blame and projection. Your life is your own, not a reflection of their brokenness.